Hello, everyone. Welcome to Real Guitar Live. I'm Thomas Michaud, for those of you who are new here. Today, we're going to answer all your guitar-related questions, hopefully. And at the end, I'm going to do the usual drawing for the members of Real Guitar Success who have completed the guitar sessions for the month. So each month, we hold a drawing. Students complete one guitar session each day, 5 days a week. Spend 10 minutes on it, all it takes to complete it. And then at the end, I do a drawing for an Amazon gift card, $50. So that's for the end. Let's start off with the questions that I have pre-submitted, and then I'll go to the chat. By the way, if you have a question, please enter it into the chat, or if you have a clarifying question for anything I talk about. And if you could start with the word question, it'll help me identify it. There's a lot of comments there, and I can't really sort everything out, but if I see question, I'll hone in on it. For people who are joining, I'll add this here so they can see that. Hopefully that'll help. Okay, let's start out with the pre-submitted questions. By the way, Happy New Year. I hope everybody is ready to have a great year playing guitar. And I encourage you to set yourself at least some type of goals for this year. I prefer to do my goals in 90-day segments. And when I say goals, I'm talking about something you hold lightly, not some big heavy thing that you're going to feel terribly disappointed if you don't accomplish it. I hold my goals lightly, try to make them realistic, but a little bit step of where I'm at. And there's 3 types of goals with guitar that I tend to hold myself to. Something, an objective that I want to achieve, like a song or a technique I want to be able to play up to a certain speed. Or I'll also set a goal of what I call a process goal. Just I'm going to practice so much each day, or on this particular day every week, I'm going to practice an extra certain amount. And I encourage you to make your goals be specific. I forgot what the third goal is. I'll remember it. The third type of goal, rather. I only named 2 there. I got that. It'll hit me in a minute. That's par for the course. In any case, let's start off with the first question, and please, I'll look forward to having some more questions as we go. The first question is by John. He's asking me to discuss or demonstrate good hand positioning, and he's asking for finger picking and for palm muting. Okay, so Simon, let's see, struggle. Okay, I assume we're talking the right hand then. Understand the correct wrist and hand position. Let's start with palm muting, because it is all in the right hand, palm muting. Let me make sure you can see my right hand. I'll turn this way. So for palm muting, what I'm doing is taking the palm of my hand and resting it slightly on this white part, we call that the bridge, and then when I strike the strings, it sounds, but it doesn't fully ring out. So you see, I'm not up here because that would really deaden it out. Just on the white part, still lets it sound. So here's a melody and the chord. This is a common one. Every now and then I might lift it up, let it ring. A good way to practice this is just to put your palm there and then hit one string at a time and see. You could even do it without a chord. Just focus completely on the right hand. And just do that a little bit of each time, each day. Then try it with a chord. Now with a chord, I usually can't strike the whole chord. You see how much I have to twist my wrist. It's usually just a part of the chord, and I usually aim for the low strings. Melody could be anywhere. That's a palm mute. There are other types of mutes, just to be clear. I can also mute the strings by slightly lifting my fingers on the left hand. And this has some limitations, because watch this. This finger, the C chord right here, I'm not actually hitting the open string. So when I stop my fingers, when I lift them slightly, it mutes the strings I'm fingering, but not the ones that are open. So a palm mute, I could get all of those. Or I could choke them off, just mute right at the end. A lot of times I'll do both. I'll play like this. You see, I'm actually doing some help with my left hand, but I'm making sure I got all the strings covered with my right hand as well. Okay, finger picking. Let's see, hand position. So I'm going to put my fingers on each of the strings. This is the way to check my hand position. I'll start with the first, second, and third strings. Just slightly resting. Of course, the third finger's on the first string, second finger's on the second string, and the first finger's on the third string, and then my thumb on the low bass string. Now, this is a good hand position. It's slightly angled, not like this. That's going to hurt my wrist before too long. Slightly angled, but you don't want to go like this either. It's hard to get in between the strings like this. It's this in-between spot. The thumb is going to push down. You can even touch the next string. That gets you a good bass note. Try not to yank out like that. Though some of that's happening when I'm playing fast. Just, you know, go more towards down as opposed to out. This tends to make a twangy sound. And the fingers are going to pull into my palm. Another thing to watch for is try not to yank your hand in and out like this. It makes it hard to get back to where you were. It's subtle, but it'll slow you down. Now, let me turn this way so you can see my hands. Thumb. See, by pulling into my palm, I'm avoiding doing this. It makes a twangy sound too. Okay. John, if you're on the call and you have some follow-up questions, feel free. I would love to talk more about that. This is Padraig. Do you have any tips on how to accurately pick bass notes? I got the low E covered, but the fifth and fourth strings, those are difficult. So a lot of it is just persistent practice, but I'll show you a couple of tips that might help. Hey, get that out of the way there. There we go. Now you can see me. I'll make a G chord. Notice I'm hitting the bass note in a strum. I like to have students practice a bass run because then you get a lot more practice on the bass notes. Here's the bass run. Now I hit the bass note for the C 3 times. Open A, second fret, and third fret is the C. And then I'll go backwards. The fourth string, the D chord. So these are 3 good chords to practice the different bass notes. D is the 4th string, C is the 5th string, and G is the 6th string. Not the only chords, of course, but they go together well. So all I did was to open D, that's 4th string, 2nd fret, and then open it again, and start over. Low, 2nd fret, 3rd string. When I make hit the 3rd string, I make the G chord. Try to hit the string in such a way that your pick is going down to hit the next string. Rest on the next string, I should say, not actually hit it. As opposed to like that. Because now you got to get back and find where you're at and then strike down. This way, I'm ready for that next bass note. Go slow as you need to go to get it right. And then pick up the speed little by little. Metronome helps you, and partly just to kind of gauge that you're going in nice little increments. When I play without a metronome, it's easy for me to get excited and start pushing faster than I can actually play. The metronome keeps me honest, so to speak. But it's not absolutely mandatory. A drum machine's kind of cool too. Makes it a little, I think, a little more fun. But you know, the more gadgets you get, the more time you spend with the gadgets too, so there's always a balance there. I can spend, half an hour playing with the different drum sounds, deciding which ones I want and tweaking them a little bit. Now I just used the half hour I could have been practicing. Okay, hope that helps. We got some from Rogelio. How can I improve chord switching and timing? An age-old issue. Should I just keep improving the BPM? He means speeding it up little by little, practicing and then speeding up and practicing a little faster and a little faster as we can get. Yes, that's an excellent way to practice, Rogelio. Go as slow as you need to get it right. Start with 2 chords and start with just straight down strum. As a matter of fact, even leave a space. So if this was 4 beats, I'll leave a space on that 4th beat. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that gives me time to change. I'm going to tighten that up over time. I don't want to leave that big hole there. But over time, change. What I'm looking for is to be on time for that next chord, the C chord, and to be nice, clean, and clear with the C chord. So leaving that extra time gives me a chance to get it right. Go slow with the metronome again, or you can do it without again. It's just metronome again. It kind of holds you back, so to speak. And then add a 3rd chord once you get that pretty well. And the same thing, slow it down again and start speeding up. When you're changing chords, it can help initially to keep in mind a couple of the principles of changing chords. What I would recommend, one of the more important ones, is to start from the bottom. So a lot of times people will make a chord like this. Here's a C chord. They'll start with the 1st finger, 2nd finger, and 3rd finger. This, but it takes a long time. I'm exaggerating a little bit now, but I mean, when you're strumming, look at this. I got here, and that would be on the beat. I'm already too late. If you start with the 3rd finger, that's the bottom, the low note, even if you miss the top notes and you get that low note, it's still going to sound okay. So like this. G. Again, I exaggerate. I slowed down. I got the bass note first. Aim for the bass note, and then fill in the rest of the chord. This is a very helpful technique, especially when you're playing fast. But initially, it'll help you get the chords on time, and then you can tighten it up. You want to be able to eventually just play the whole chord all at one time. That's a good exercise, by the way. Just one chord and see how fast you can go. An additional exercise, not the only exercise, kind of a speed exercise. See how fast you can go just getting between 2 chords. And I'll practice these 2. Now I'll do 3. La Bamba would be a good fast chord change song with G, C, and D. And then once you get the G, C, and D, go for another key. That was the key of G. Those are the 3 main chords in the key of G. G, I would say the next key could be G, A, B, C, D. I just want 5. G, A, B, C, D. That would be a popular chord for guitar players. Do the same practice starting at the beginning. The 1, 4, 5 in the key of D. Start with this, the D to A7. That's actually a pretty easy change. Because you got these 2 fingers, they're going to be the same. You just move over. That's another tip, by the way. Look for fingers that you either have in common or you can leave on the string and just slide down. So for instance, with this type of G, I can leave that 3rd finger there. It's a 4-finger G. And that anchor finger actually helps me to change faster. Keeps me in the right spot. I don't have to find everything. This is a C I like to use. It's technically called a C add 9. It's kind of a hip-sounding, modern-sounding C chord. But it's very easy to change from there to C. Okay, those are just some tips. Of course, there's a lot more in the Real Guitar Success and the progressive. So you get the tips are helpful, but you got to integrate them. It's not just information and going to solve everything. You need to integrate them into your playing, and that's what we do in Real Guitar Success, step by step. Okay, ear training. Do you have any ear training exercises or lessons in Real Guitar Success? Absolutely. Go to the Real Guitar Success University, and you'll find among those courses an ear training course. and it's progressive. I use a lot of by copy. That means I'll play simple little phrases, then have you play them back by ear. And we'll go through that process in using different keys, in little phrases so that you have a chance to get them right. And it's the kind of thing you can do over and over and get better and better at. I found that to be a very valuable way to ear train for guitar players, because that's what you kind of have to do. You have to hear the notes and then translate it into somewhere on the guitar. The other kind of ear training I like to use is just listening for chords and recognizing chords. So there's a whole section on ear training with chords. And same thing, I'll play the chord and play from one chord to another and then have you play it back by ear. I give you a video so you can use that as a help, and the idea is to little by little not look at the video and try to just listen. But it's always there to give you a hint or to see if you get it right. I will put a link to that in the show notes, but you could get there right away. It's under the Real Guitar Success University, and in all those courses you'll see ear training. It's all either on the first or second page, I forget which one. It's called Fretboard Adventures, ear training. How can we, or do we use chord progressions in fingerstyle? So fingerstyle is referring to picking in the right hand. You can use a flat pick. That comes from bluegrass, by the way. They call this a flat pick. And this is fingerstyle. Fingerstyle. I'm picking with my fingers. If I did that same thing with a pick, I'm not sure how I would do that, but it would be a flat picking style. So it has nothing to do with the chord progressions of the left hand. The short answer would be absolutely you can do chord progression with fingerstyle. So here's the chord progression. G, E minor, C, D. Here's a strum version of that chord progression. Here's a finger style version. So that same progression, arpeggio style with a flat pick. Same progression. Next, the thumb wants to continue to place itself not directly between my index and middle fingers. So we're talking the left hand. But it wants to form a hitchhiking thumb. I guess that means sticking up like that. Is that common and is it wrong? Okay, thumb. There really isn't one exact place to put the thumb. I often suggest to students a good place is generally in, let's see, got it there? Yeah, you can see. Roughly in the middle of the neck, flat, not crimped like that. That's a tough one. Flat, and that gives you the most movement in my right hand. If I want to go to a bar chord, no problem. I don't really have to shift the thumb around there. Some people play with the thumb like this. Matter of fact, some famous artists, I think many actually, with a thumb, let me see, around like this. Now, how can I say that's wrong when these are famous, excellent guitar players? It's limiting, and if you're starting out, I prefer students to go ahead and learn this way. Some people call this the classical approach, because in classical guitar, you're always taught that. You need to be able to move all around in classical guitar, and have your thumb up here I can't stretch. I have to move back, and I can't make a bar chord this way either. I have to move back to make a bar chord. I see some guitarists put the thumb more like this. Not their palm like this, but the thumb to the side. That seems to work perfectly fine. I would prefer to have my hand this way. It just gives me more reach, especially when I'm playing something a little more complex. So in short, I don't think right or wrong is the right way to describe it. I would just aim for having your thumb relaxed and in the place that you can play, reasonable distance from one fret to the other. But in that said, and try not to do it in such a way that, it's going to hurt you over time. The main problem with this is going to hurt your thumb over time. That's the main reason I don't want you to do that. But if you play like this and you're doing fine, uh, it's it's not wrong. As a matter of fact, I say power to you. There are some techniques actually you can use like this. Putting your thumb over to play the bass note. I'm not very good at that, but I can do it. See, I've got the bass note with my thumb. All said and done, most beginners have more flexibility if you just get the habit of putting your thumb behind there, roughly between your fingers. It's not exact. See, I can play like this. I'll still have my thumb there. Yeah, that's okay. It's more on this side as opposed to directly in the middle. Okay, I think that's all I'll say about that for now. This is Anna. I'm in the Spanish guitar class, and I'm a total newbie. Cool. It is newbie friendly, the Spanish guitar, in the sense that you can be a beginner and it takes you from the very beginning stages. Not so with like bar chords. It's kind of expecting that you know some of the open chords and basic techniques already. Is it important to try to memorize each chord that you're learning? I keep having to go back and review. I would say yes. I would aim to memorize the chords. But don't go for 100%. Because you're going to memorize them better when you play them in progression. That's where you really memorize chords. So you just want to get up to, where you feel like you're 70, 80% memorizing the chord and then move on and know that you're going to work it a little bit later. When you play a chord progression, it's much easier to memorize chord forms. And the course adds more and more progressions as you go along. So you may not have played enough progressions yet. If you have to go back and familiarize yourself with the lesson and then play the progression, you're going to probably memorize it better once you play the lesson that you need to use it in the progression. In Spanish guitar course, the later chords get a little more complex than the basic open chords. And I would practice the individual chords, like here's one. It's kind of like a bar chord, but there's no bar. And just do this a little bit each day. 3 minutes. Finger the chord. See how fast you can finger the chord. Make a game out of it. Do that a little bit each day, and you're going to get that one chord better. And then when you play it in progression, it'll be easier. And you find any chord that's particularly difficult to memorize, spend a little time on it each day. It works a lot better than trying to get it in one session. I'm talking 2 or 3 minutes at a time. I'm thinking it might be nice if I just made a sheet with all the chords that you could print out so you don't have to go back to the lesson to remember the chord progression. There are sheets, and you could print those out and instead of going back on the computer, look at the sheets. But maybe I could come up with a sheet with just all the chords on one sheet that you could have handy. I think that might be a good idea. I'll look into that and see how hard that would be, and probably add that to the Spanish guitar course. And take me a few days. I'm working on something else right now. Is there a way to make sense of the name of the chords, like B minor, A7, etc.? Maybe having an understanding would help memorize them. The short answer is no. The long answer is yes. There's a theoretical approach, but it would probably be more time-consuming and maybe even a little confusing to start working on the theory of those chords instead of just memorizing them. Actually, memorizing the chord shapes in the beginning is a shortcut. As time goes on, you will learn more of the theory, and it will help in a sense. But it's probably the best and most efficient to just memorize where the chords are. And when I say memorize, it's not just intellectual. It's a muscle memory thing. And that's what the theory doesn't really help with, is the muscle memory. Once you practice it enough, just do this. Make a game out of it. Chord's a difficult one. Just keep going back and forth a little bit each day. You'll have the muscle memory as well as the intellectual memory. Matter of fact, you want to get to the place where you don't think about where to put your fingers. And that's the thing with memorizing the chords. Is get to where you don't think about where the fingers go. They just go in the right place when you think the chord. It's a slow, tedious process, but it's very effective. And as a matter of fact, I think it's one of those understated things. It's a age-old process to keep coming back at something a little bit at a time and chipping it away. And a lot of people are looking for the trick or that piece of information that will make it all fit into place. And every now and then there is something that's holding you back that if you just knew it. But I think it's often overstated. Often the solution is persistence, little at a time, keep coming back at it. So just keep that in mind. That's always a possibility of a way to approach it. And sometimes when you keep at it a little at a time, a way of seeing it for yourself kind of comes into view. That this makes sense to you more than if somebody telling you this is how to think about it. It's a balance. There's always, you want to keep learning information as well as integrating it and practicing it and making it a part of your consciousness. Okay, so that's all I have for the pre-submitted questions. Let's look over here and see what we have for questions for, I'm going to make it a little bigger. Yes, big is good for me. There we go. Let's look at questions for today. Michael's logging in from India. Oh, yes, I guess we have a time difference, don't we? Iowa. Yeah, we got Australia. People from all over. Hey, Janet. And Israel. Hi, Shalomit. I got a question. Why have I finally started to memorize the guitar neck only after I started learning piano? I don't know. I can't really answer that, but I'm glad to hear it. Conroy, maybe. I mean, I've had similar experience in different areas. When I go do something else, sometimes I think it could be a combination of them. I'm too focused on seeing things a certain way on the guitar, and doing something else like the piano just knocks me out of what I've been doing and helps me to see it another way that makes sense. I will say, too, I do play some piano, and I found it very helpful in understanding how chords are made, because it's so clear on the piano. On guitar, it's not clear. There's notes that are duplicated, and it doesn't appear to be a logic to the fretboard. There is, but it's not as obvious. Where in the piano, you just see the chord laid out. You see the root note, the third, the fifth, and it's very easy to make sense out of it. I really like the piano, particularly for just understanding music and how it works. I think it's a great tool. And it's kind of fun to be able to play with two hands. You can play something one hand and play with the other, which that's really hard to do on the guitar. Can you recommend a good acoustic amp? I made a blog post on that, and I don't remember what I recommended, because I can tell you what I have, but I may have spent more money than a lot of beginners are willing to spend. So I will link to that blog post, and I remember I researched some less expensive acoustic guitar amps that had good reviews, and I got the prices on there and everything. I will say the brand Fishman makes some darn good acoustic guitar amps, and I've tried out many of them and have used some of them. I'm currently using a PA system. In other words, a whole system with two speakers and a head, but I need the volume and the clarity for live performances. It's not necessarily, it might be a little overkill for in your living room. It probably is. I mean, depends on what you want and what you're willing to spend. We're talking, $1,000 and up. A good acoustic amp, I would expect to pay at least $300. But there are some I know in the $100 to $200 range that were decent. They were okay. They tend to be smaller and lose something on the clarity of the sound the smaller you get. But you can get a pretty good acoustic amp for $500. Pretty good. Fishman, that's the main name that comes to my mind. And there's a few lesser known names I know in that blog post that I'll link to in the show notes. They should be out on Monday, I believe. Question. Suppose I'm playing rhythm guitar with a capo on the 2nd fret in the key of A. How does the bass player know which A note to play on the fretboard? Okay, Wally. Wally, if you could clarify that question. You see, I've played bass too, and I mean, I don't know what you're trying to do. Are you playing bass, or are you trying to help the bass player in a group that you're playing with, or is it just just a question that just came to your mind, just curious? It would help because I'd answer it from different perspective. So I'll say from me playing bass and I'm playing with a guitar player, I don't care what he plays. I can hear in my mind what the note is. If he plays a G chord here, an A chord, let's say A, or here, where's that A? There it is. I can hear that's an A chord. I'll be looking for the bass notes for that chord. And I would think most good bass players could do that. If they're just starting out and a student, maybe they need a little help. You might have to tell them if they're not familiar with the theory of transposing. If you know the theory of transposing, you got the capo here and you're playing a G chord, you would know if you're playing a G and the bass player knows that's a G chord, but you got a capo on, everything's moved up 2 frets. Now I know that's an A, G to A, right? Same as the guitar player. If he doesn't know that, I don't know, it might be easier to just tell him I'm playing A. I don't think you're going to want to stop and give him a theory lesson or a capo lesson, especially since if they don't play guitar. By the way, it is a help for bass players to play some guitar for that reason, to understand, because they often play with guitar players and it makes it a little easier to talk the language and to figure out what they're doing. But a professional bass player is to develop their ears to the point where that's not always very necessary. I would look over at the guitar player once in a while as a confirmation, but and often they would, when we're playing a new song that I'm not familiar with, they would tell me what key it's in, so I know what to choose from. Hey, it's in the key of A. Watch for that flat third. Okay, I know what that means. A, B, C sharp normally, but we're going to be doing a C instead of a C sharp. I'll watch for that. Brings back memories. I haven't played bass in a while, but I did play professionally for years. Question. I've been practicing scales and doing solo course. Just curious about why pentatonic scales leave out 2 notes. So this is Kevin, and I'm hoping what you're saying is you're doing the course on improvisation. It's called guitar soloing. It can be a little confusing because also when you play a song with a melody and chords, they call that solo guitar. So that's why I'm never exactly sure when somebody says I'm playing solo guitar, what they mean. They're soloing. But since you're asking about scale, so the why of a pentatonic, first of all, let me say pentatonic scale is a 5-note scale. And a common one is the minor pentatonic. This is the one I often start students on. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's a repeat. That's the octave of the root note, the first note. And that was A. The pentatonic scale, the reason I teach that first is it's a scale that is very hard to hit a note that doesn't sound good. And especially in blues and rock, it sounds, it goes with the style. They're often used in pentatonic when people are soloing in the style of blues, rock, or anything in that mixture of blues and rock. And a lot of rock is based on blues, so it can fit a lot of situations. And it's when you're playing to a chord progression, it's very hard to hit a note that doesn't sound right. So it's a good one to start out on, and it's both very useful and can give you some encouragement. My guess would be, I wasn't there when they decided to take out those 2 notes to make the pentatonic scale. I would guess that somebody just started playing and say, hey, I noticed when I leave out those 2 notes, I got more flexibility with you know, what notes I'm, the rest of the notes throughout the song. When I hit one of those two notes, sometimes it doesn't sound right. So let's just call that a 5-note scale pentatonic and stick with that, and and we've got it covered. We got a lot of stuff covered. By rough guess, I couldn't actually know what people were thinking when they first decided to both come up with that scale and to name it pentatonic, which probably didn't go together, by the way. People are often doing stuff until somebody comes up with a name for it. I'm glad to hear you're doing the solo course. There's a lot of, every week I'm including some type of soloing or improvisation in the guitar sessions. So the solo course kind of gives you a good foundation on how to approach it. But I'll add a lot of things to that each week that aren't in the course, so they kind of keep expanding on it. A question about the previous bass run discussion. How do you know which notes are used in the bass run? So, hi Dan. In this case, I was expecting you to just memorize it, not to know why those notes. And that's, I think, the first step in bass notes. Just memorize some common bass note patterns. Now, if you want to get into the theory of it, those are all notes in the scale of G, which I'm playing the song in the key of G. And they're notes that lead from one chord to the other. So I can play this. But that didn't sound like it stepped to the next chord. It is notes in the scale. I was looking for notes that went to the next chord. And see, the next note is a C. Didn't it lead to it? And part of the reason I know that is because I've played that lick 100 times and I hear it in my head. I can hear how it quickly leads to that. If you were figuring it out intellectually, I could say, yeah, G scale, I'm on G. I got to get to C what notes are between G and C. And then I got to make it fit rhythmically into where the chords are going to fall. You could go fast if you had to. You know, there's a lot of things I could do to jazz it up, but still get there in time. Same with the D. Now it went from C to D. Well, there aren't many notes between C and D. I could do that, right? C to D, there's only this half step in between. And I chose to just put the D, let's see, D, C. I went D to E, back to D, up and then back down, because it was handy. This would have been harder. Listen. I can do that. That could have been an option, just by half steps. They're different, but both, I think, equally as valid. Okay. I can't think of anything more to say about that now. But again, let me emphasize, probably, I think the two can go together, but put the weight on just learning some patterns that sound good, and then kind of make sense out of them instead of trying to figure out bass patterns intellectually. It's just, it can be done, but it's a little bit of a long way around the block. Better to hear it, play it, then make sense out of it, and then the two will work together to create more elaborate patterns or different patterns to fit different situations. And again, I would start with the popular keys for guitar, G, C, D, A, and E. You can put those into the word caged if you want, or you can also just count up 5, G, A, B, C, D, E. I usually start from D, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and so on. No, start from G. It doesn't matter. Caged will give you the popular keys for guitar. Question. I was chatting with a friend about capos. You see them in acoustic and classical guitars, yes. But I don't recall seeing them used in electric guitars at all. Your thoughts about that? All I could say is that I don't need capos on electric guitar because it's so easy to bar. The neck is thin and the strings are light. So that would just hold me down. I'd have to put it on, take it off. My guess would be it also more likely to make the guitar out of tune. But I can play bar chords and things between bar chords. I don't need the capo. The other thing is on electric guitar, I'm not usually playing stuff that I would want a capo on. If I'm changing the key to a song, on an electric guitar, I would just reform it to play bar chords. It's easier to play bar chords on electric guitar. The strings are light, easy to press down, and the neck is thin. That'd be my best guess. Generally, I don't see a capo on electric guitar either. I think I've seen it, but it'd be a very specific situation. So for general purposes, I would say that's probably not the best place to use the capo. But I would learn bar chords if you play electric guitar fast. That's very much more critical on electric guitar. Okay, next. Question. Do we have a soloing, improvising in RGS? Yes. And actually, that's what Kevin was referring to. Again, if you look in the Real Guitar University, the first thing is find the course on soloing, because I go step by step. Basic A pentatonic, minor pentatonic scale, how to use it, and some techniques that you can incorporate. But every week in the guitar sessions, on Wednesday, I include a lesson on soloing or improvising. And sometimes it'll be a scale and give you a chord progression to use with it. Sometimes I'll actually I'll include a lick that you can use along with that scale. And sometimes I'll even give you a simple little soloing or a soloing technique that you could imitate and then add that into your repertoire, your toolkit of soloing. And they all, little by little, basically I'm giving you little pieces and trying to stretch you and let you improvise and experiment so that you get better and better. It's usually in context of whatever song I'm working on too, so you get a place to kind of make sense out of it. Okay. And you're welcome, Antonio. My pleasure. He says he had the same idea that I expressed. Okay, that's all the questions I see for now. I'm going to go ahead and do the drawing. If you think of a question while I'm doing the drawing, add it there. I'll check and make sure I answer. I won't ask. I will answer whatever questions are there before we hang up for today. So let's do the drawing. Let's see. And again, for those of you who came in afterwards, these are questions from, these are names from people who have completed the guitar sessions for the month of December. And that meant they just each day spent 10 minutes, checked off the lesson. You can do 2 lessons a day if you want. But at the end of the month, you can check off all 20 sessions and you get entered into a drawing. This is for a $50 Amazon gift card. And the winner for today is Donald. Good job, Donald Schwartz. You got it. And congratulations to everybody who completed the 20 guitar sessions. I promise you, even if you don't know it, you are a little better guitar player for it. And you have some more possibilities. I hope you check some of the sessions off in your favorite section so you can go back to them and work on some more. Okay, any last minute questions? Let's see. Oh, you're very welcome, Cash. Nothing I see. So I'm going to close up for today. I really appreciate you all spending your time here, especially from some awkward time zones I know. I wish I could make it available, an easy time zone for everyone, but of course, you know how that works. I look forward to seeing you again. We'll be back next month, the first Thursday of every month. And just checking, no more questions. I look forward to having you back and answering more of your questions. Feel free to submit questions ahead of time, but you're also always welcome to come and submit them on the fly. And by the way, I do record this. I'm going to put out the show notes on Monday, and we'll have a listing of all the questions too. We call that timestamps, so you can quickly go to a question that's of interest to you or the question that you asked. Bye for now. Take care. I look forward to seeing you again.